Joshua chapter 6, verse 1 through 4, and we will begin our contemplation for this morning. Now Jericho was straitly shut up. Because of the children of Israel, none went out and none came in. Nobody. No movement. No activity. They had shut it down. And the Lord said unto Joshua, see, I have given into thine hand Jericho. See, I've given it to you. I've given it to you. I've given it to you. The problem is just a wrapping. It's just gift wrapped in a problem. But I have given into thine hand Jericho and the king thereof and the mighty men of valor. I have given it all to you. Now walk around it, get used to it, all ye men of war, and go round about the city once. Thou shalt do it 6 days. One time, 6 days. And 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns, and the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times. And the priest shall blow with the trumpets. Now, wait a minute. Isn't that amazing? Okay, in the upper verse, it started talking about ye men of war. But then when it steps down from the men of war, so you got men of war who have weapons, who are soldiers. But then it said, put the praisers up front. So we know this isn't a normal battle, because normally when you're fighting a battle, you don't bring a trumpet to a battle. But he says, I want the priests to get up front with trumpets. So you got the guys with swords in the back, and you got the ones with trumpets in the front, and march around the wall once a day for 6 days, and the 7th day, 7 times. Wait a minute, let me go back to the text. And 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns, and the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times, and the priest shall blow with the trumpet. Isn't it amazing to think about the instrument that made the noise had come through the blood to make it? So these are not silver trumpets. These are trumpets that have come from the heads of rams through the blood to make the sound. That's just a byproduct. Yeah. It cost me something to be this noisy. I bled to be this noisy. I've been through some loss to be this noisy. I endured some pain to be this noisy. I'm not just wild, uncouth, illiterate, or unintelligent. If you have been cut where I've been cut, you make the sound that I'm about to make. But if you haven't been cut by anything, you don't know how to make the sound. So just sit there and be quiet and march around and just walk and shut up, because everybody that's gonna make a sound has been cut somewhere to make the sound. Yeah. Identify yourself. If you've been cut, and the city shall be accursed, even it and all that are therein, to the Lord. Only the hooker shall live. Jesus, I'm not even gonna bother to that. Only out of everybody in the city, God said, the only person I'm gonna save is the one person that the church today would condemn. I'll let you theologians and scholars work that out and fix that up and give me the original language for that. But Rahab the harlot shall live, she and all that are with her in the house. Ain't that crazy? Because she hid, because I'm not endorsing her profession, but because in spite of her mistakes, In spite of her failures, in spite of her flaws, in spite of her misgivings, she messed around and did one thing right. The truth of the matter is there are some people in here, you got all kind of faults and all kind of blemishes, and some of you got all kinds of secrets, but you messed around and did one thing right, and it's provoked a change in your life. You just hid the right messenger. You just got the right word. You just ingested the right stuff, and now there's a change in your life because she hid the messenger that we sent. God said, I'm going to help her because she helped me. And ye in any wise, I'm down in verse 18 now, and ye in any wise keep yourselves from the accursed thing, lest ye make yourselves accursed. When you take of the accursed thing and make the camp of Israel accursed and trouble it, come on. But all the silver and gold and vessels of brass and iron are consecrated unto the Lord. They shall come into the treasury of the Lord. Touch your neighbor for a minute, just nudge the elbow or something and say, you're going to get something out of this. God is not going to let you fight without increase. There's going to be a release of something that's going to come out of this. Your labor is not in vain. Your suffering is not in vain. You're not going to go to battle and not have spoils. There's going to be spoil. By the time you leave this conference, your plane is going to be heavier because you're going to be loaded up with increase and information and an insight like you never had before. And there's going to be a shift somewhere in your life as a result of what you take in. So the people shouted when the priests blew with the trumpets, and it came to pass when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout, and the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city. My subject for the next few moments is a world full of walls. A world full of walls. And if I were to use a subtopic, I would use tear down this wall. Tear down this wall. Let's pray while we're standing. I didn't tell you to wear them heels. So just endure hardness as a good soldier. It costs to be cute. Stilettos on concrete is not of God. Let all the people in tennis shoes say amen. Yes. Lord, if you don't save me, save my toes. You have to be over 40 to understand the power of a good saved toe. Yeah, a good saved bunion. Let's pray. Father, we're having a great time, but we're a great people, but we have a great God, but we have great influence, but we also have great battles. To him whom much is given, much is required. The smallest, most petite person in this world, in this room right now, has some Goliath to fight, some obstacle, some restriction. Some of them are on the outside, some of them are on the inside, but all of us have our scars to prove that we are warriors. You don't get gray hair without warfare. You don't get to be a grown-up without warfare. Nowadays, you don't even get to be a kid without warfare. As we embark upon this moment in time and space, uniquely set apart from all others before it, we value this present moment. We are tantalized by the future, but we can't touch what we're tantalized by. Some of us are agonized by the past, but the past is behind us, and it cannot be rectified. It can be redeemed, but it cannot be rectified. The preciousness of this moment is as unique as the fingerprint on my thumb. There will never be another moment like this moment. This moment is unique and set apart from all other moments. Please help me not to be distracted or foolish and miss the power of this moment. Don't let any phone call, any text, any carnal thing get in the way of the power of this moment. I drove for it. I flew for it. I drug my bags and stood in line in airports all around the world to get to it. I changed planes and ate that nasty food on the airplane to get here. I drove in cars with stinky feet to get here. I wanted this. Don't let me miss this moment. In Jesus' name, amen. Rest on your seat. Yeah. This is one of the CEOs from Google stepped down from his position so that he could have free discussions about artificial intelligence. And I think it was New York Times reported the article, and he was quoted to have said that we are standing on the verge of a complete metamorphosis, unlike any that we have seen since Henry Ford made the first automobile. And I thought to myself, a few years ago, I was up in Martha's Vineyard, a beautiful area, wonderful oceans, great restaurants, great people, amazing experience, but I noticed that the roads were real narrow. And I asked them, why were the roads so narrow? They said, we didn't build the roads for cars. We built the roads for horses and buggies. And once the cars came, it was too late because we didn't have the capacity to expand. My concern is that you become loyal to a construct that will not accommodate the transition that we're going in order to remain relevant. In other words, I'm afraid you're going to have horse and buggy roads in an automobile age and be sincerely unprepared for what we see on the horizon in this hour. Because transition is unknowable and unseeable. You can't predict it. You can't foresee it. You have to remain liquid to transition to it at a moment's notice. You have to have the dexterity, the nimbleness of thought, the agility of mind to be able to transition. And people who hate change often get left behind. They can't handle change because we draw a certain amount of security from things being normal. And when somebody compromises normal, they freak out. That's why everybody who made it through the wilderness might not make it to the promised land, because the wilderness can become so familiar that you love the dry place and resist your own place. Joshua comes to leadership at a horrible time. He leads a group of people at a horrible moment. You see, Moses, who they murmured against for the 40 years of transition, has died. And even though people murmur against you, don't mistake murmuring for disrespect. The two things can coexist at the same time. Some of the people who are your haters still respect your accomplishment. They're just too petty to be comfortable enough to celebrate what challenges them, because they don't have the capacity on their road for your automobile. Your automobile embarrasses them because they are not prepared for expansion, so they criticize what they think they cannot become. Not understanding that the anointing you respect is the anointing you receive. So anything you might want to be someday, never talk against it. I'm not going to bother that. The reason I say this is a difficult time, you are transitioning a desert group of people into a place that is fruitful and abundant. You are transitioning a deserted group of people who were waiting for Moses to come down, and he never did, and they never had closure. They never got to say goodbye to Moses. They never got to say, I'm sorry I made it hard for you, Moses. They never got to grieve Moses. So leading people with unresolved issues is very difficult. They are temperamental. And Joshua, who has been the sucking man, has become the set man. And it is difficult to go from being the sucking man to the set man, because there are certain things you don't learn being sucking. You have to be in the set position before you really get it. That's why as an adult you want to go back. If your parents are passed away and you wish you could tell them, I get it, because there are certain things you don't see until you're in that position and you're faced with that challenge and you have to make that choice. And it's easy to criticize what you don't have to give an account for. But when you're the set man, he is changing roles. And though we didn't read it in this text, he has now assumed an assignment that God has placed on him. God gave it to him. The people didn't vote for him. They didn't elect him. And they're looking at him. And how many of you know what it's like to have people looking at you? They're just looking at you. They haven't made up their mind. They don't hate you. They don't like you. They just... And the hardest place to learn is to learn while people are looking. Because if you make any mistakes, you have armed them with weapons to throw at you. And how can you not make any mistakes? Because you have never done this before. By the way, it is possible to be good at that and not be good at this. Some of you are in transitions in your life right now where you were accomplished on the level you were at, but now you're stepping into a new level, and now you're trying to lead and learn at the same time. You're trying to comfort and be comforted at the same time. You're trying to study and teach at the same time. You're trying to give directions and trying to hear directions at the same time. And anytime you make a misstep or a mistake, they are quick to draw attention to the mistake, and they never say anything about the things you did right. They reserve their comments for the things you did wrong, and all of a sudden you don't know your friends from your enemies because they're all just looking at you. If I'm talking to the right people, make some noise for me. Let me know that I'm talking to the right people at the right place. Joshua didn't understand what was going on in his life. How do I measure up to Moses? Sea-splitting Moses, whale calling Moses, manna praying Moses. How do I compete with Moses? Tabernacle building Moses. Moses, who saw the glory of God in the cleft of the rock. There's nothing worse than coming behind somebody who was mighty and fervent and revered and respected and had already gone through the early phases of being rejected, and now you got to come in and try to fill those shoes. Have you ever been a little kid and got loose in your mama's closet or your daddy's closet, and you were wearing their shoes and you were clomping around in those shoes because they were too big for your feet? God will put you in places that are too big for your feet and let you grow into it while they criticize you. Such is the status of Joshua, because as Joshua assumes this position, you remember that part of the text where Joshua runs up on the angel and pulls out his sword? It's because he's always been a fighter. But there's a difference between being a fighter and a leader. And in order to lead, he has to learn how to use new weapons. See, some of you are in a new place, but you're still using old weapons. Oh, I'm talking to somebody, I don't know who it is. Let me show you something. You can take somebody out of the hood and put them in college and put them in corporate, but if you make them mad, all of those MBAs go out of the window, all of those degrees go out of the window, and they will get whiplash, and I will set it off up in here. I know y'all gotta act like you don't know what I'm talking about, because you still got some set it off in you. You can take somebody out of the street and put them in the church, and if you get them in traffic and you cut them off at the wrong time, they will manifest stuff that they said was under the blood, but it wasn't under the blood, it was under the rug, and if they need it, they will snatch it out. And some of you brag on the fact that you have duality. Joshua pulls his sword on an angel because all of his life, all my life, I had to fight. But there's a difference between being a leader and a fighter. And the weapons that he needs now puts him in a challenging situation, because God does not need Joshua's sword to fight this battle. He needs his leadership. And Joshua is learning how to lead while he is leading. And he is learning how to lead people who didn't pick him. You haven't been a leader till you're leading people who didn't pick you, and there's people back in the back saying, see, she don't know what she's doing. I told you she didn't know what she's doing. They should have got Paul to do it. Why in the world have they got her up there? Look at that. Look at him over there. He does not know what he's doing. That's why you needed to be at the leadership conference, just to get a break, just to get a breather, just to come up for air, just a woosah, just for a minute, because it's hard to lead and remain professional and remain articulate and intelligent and know that you are under attack, not by what's in front of you, but by the troops behind you. Is there anybody in here that's been attacked by the people you were trying to help while you were fighting against the people in front of you? You had to hold off the people behind you, and you are going through midlife crisis. That's what I call midlife crisis, when you're stuck between enemies. The enemy you thought was an enemy and the enemy that is a frenemy. That is the case. And they have survived the desert and the Amalekites. They have survived the deserts and its perils and the cockatrice and the serpents and the times, the turbulent and fluctuating weathers of freezing cold at night and scorching heat during the day. They survived all of that. And now they have come to a place that he has visited but not taken. He has visited Jericho. He has been part of the spies up under Moses' regime and leadership that visited across the wall. But it's one thing to visit a place, and it's another thing to take it. See, you are having a completely different experience from my staff. See, it was hard for you to get here by 9, but they were here at 5. And they didn't leave till 3. It is different when you visit something and when you create something. Joshua has visited the promised land. He has visited Canaan. He has visited Jericho. He has been a spy in the city, but it was just for a short duration. Now, hear this. I want to talk to visionaries. You will always have a glimpse of it before you get to it. It's almost like God works for GMC or Fox or MGM or somebody, because he gives you previews of coming attractions. No details. I call them glimpses. And you can't explain how you're going to get there, and you're not even sure if you're going to get there, and you're not sure what to do if you get there, but you've caught a glimpse of something in front of you that is stronger than what is behind you. And that's what gets you out of the bed every morning, is because you have a foretaste of an abstract, indescript, nebulous, untouchable, intangible thing called vision, that it begins to drive you crazy, because the more you catch the vision, the more you want to know when, the more you want to know how, the more you want to get. See, people who are not hungry in a room like this have no vision, because if you have no vision, I don't have anything to feed you with. But if you have a vision and you're tormented because you want to know the building blocks, how to get you from point A to point B, then you are really listening. You're not distracted. You're not trying to figure out where you're going to lunch when this is over. The people who are doing that, I don't have anything to feed because they don't have any mouth. The people who have their mouth open are the birds that are about to take flight, and they've been in the nest long enough, and they're about to exude into a new dimension, and they got wings that they don't know how to flap, and they've never been this airborne, and they've never been this high before, and now all of a sudden they find themselves in a situation where if they don't flap, they're going to fall, and if they don't flap, they're going to die, and if they don't flap, they're going to go under, and they are listening at every word that is coming out of my mouth, because they're trying to understand. I've visited, I've seen, I've glimpsed, I've got a foretaste, I've got a preview, but I really don't have details of how to get there. And I'm not sure I'm armed for this level of leadership, because I am so used to fighting behind the scenes that I'm not used to fighting with the spotlight on me. Now I got to raise my children while you watch, and you watch and talk about my children while your children are doing twice as much as my children, but your children don't get reported on, and your children don't get talked about. And now you get to watch my marriage look like she don't like him. Sister Jace didn't smile at him when he came in. She didn't kiss him this time. Years ago, I remember when there was something must be going on in the marriage, and people are watching my marriage, but they're not watching your marriage, because you and Bill fought all the way from the hotel to the check-in counter, and then you came in and said, good morning, welcome to you, but because the spotlight's not on you. But I came to tell you, get ready. The light's about to hit you in a place it has never hit you before, and it's going to shut your mouth from talking about other people, because now they're going to be having you for dinner. Joshua knew about Jericho. He knew that he would have to cross the Jordan to get to Jericho. I've been to the Jordan. I know what it's like. I've been on the dry side of Jordan, and I've been through the Jordan River and crossed over into Jerusalem and gone up the Jericho Road and experienced the difference in the terrain and the topography. And I understand that there's a massive difference between the greenery from the dry places. He knows how to survive in dry places, but the test now is, do you know how to survive in green places? Because God's getting ready to put you in green places. But you have a desert mentality and you're not prepared for the green place that he's about to set you into. And Joshua has even confronted walls before, but he climbed them or was lowered down from them. He's never had to bring the wall down. And there is a world full of walls. Can I go deeper? The biblical account of the creation introduces us to boundaries. There's a difference between boundaries and walls. Boundaries can be a good thing. What precipitates the narrative of the creation in the book of Genesis is God separates the firmaments that are above the waters from the firmaments that are beneath the waters, and there's a whole lot of separating going on. There's more separating going on than creation, because creation is not as difficult as boundaries. You missed that. That went right over your head. Creation is not as difficult as boundaries. You can create a situation and then have trouble setting boundaries for the situation you created. Keep looking straight ahead, act like you don't know what I'm talking about, and we're going to get through this, okay? How many of you have created a relationship but had trouble creating boundaries around the relationship you created, and now you're trying to establish boundaries in something that you end up forsaking because you cannot get the boundaries around it that are necessary for it to be a healthy relationship? And so the Bible talks more about boundaries in Genesis than it does creation. It doesn't explain creation, it just pronounces creation, but immediately it starts setting up boundaries. So anytime you're going to be in something new, you need boundaries. You need to set up territorial boundaries. Exactly what is this? How far is this going? No, that's not what this is. This is how far. To the sea, he says, go here and no further. He separates the firmaments above the waters from the firmament that is beneath the waters. And God said that was good. And he said, let the lesser lights rule the night and the greater lights rule the day. Boundaries. And God said that was good. And he called the day, he called the morning day, and he called the evening night. And God said that was good. The whole narrative is about boundaries, and you need boundaries in your life. You need boundaries with your children. One of the problems, no, I'm old school, but one of the problems you're having with your children is that they don't have no boundaries. They walking up to you, calling you by your name. They're talking to you like they go to school with you. They can say anything they want to you, and you're talking to them like they're one of your girlfriends. You're sharing your business, your marriage, who you dating, who you seeing, who you thinking about, and then when you get ready to correct them, you have no respect because you have no boundaries. Boundaries are important. It causes a person to feel nurtured and feel safe. You need to know where the line is. Before I walked out on the stage, they showed me boundaries so I'd be able to operate on the stage and know how far I can move to the left or the right without stepping up, because anytime you step on something and you don't know the terrain, you're going to trip in it. Are you hearing what I'm saying to you? That's why we do surveys for properties to establish boundaries, and they put the little flags out there so you'll know where your property line is. Boundaries let you know how far you can plant trees, lets you know how far is your property, what you're paying taxes on, what really belongs to you. Those are boundaries. But there's a difference between flags and fences. Animals mark their territory without walls. It's one thing to have a boundary, and it's another thing to have a wall. I grew up with parents who taught me every day to be all that I could be. In fact, yesterday I was at Good Soil, and my opening session was be all that you can be. Full disclosure, that was my mother's line to me all of my life. Be all that you can be. Say that with me. Be all that you can be. and she said, you can do anything, or you can be anyone that you choose to be. With hard work and proper training, you can do anything. You can go anywhere. You can climb any mountain. There's no limit. There's no wall. There's a great big world waiting on you. Go get it. And it was good, and it was exciting. It was exciting, and it was true, but Mama didn't tell me that I was stepping into a world full of walls. See, if all I had to do was go get it, how did I end up with a good degree and bad credit? How did I end up with a $100,000 student loan and a $60,000 a year job? How did I end up sleeping on Mama's couch? Wasn't this a promise made? Aren't the promises of God yes and amen? Didn't we take vows to stay together till death do us part? What happened? Didn't we plan to grow old together? What happened? Now we find ourselves in a situation that I run into unexpected walls, which are different from boundaries. Fences are different from flags. Knowing your territory is different from being colonialized. Why isn't my business accelerating? Why isn't my career accelerating? Why isn't my church accelerating? Why isn't my marriage accelerating? Why aren't my children accelerating? Because life has walls. I should have known it. It's so silly of me. I should have known it. I should have known it at birth. Because the whole incubation process of the embryo is a wall I had to come through to get here. Why did I think I was coming into open plains with no restrictions when I was born in closed places, in dark places, and had to come through walls in order to be birthed? Why did I think that I would have victory without pain when my mama was in labor when she had me? Why didn't I understand that I was being born into a world full of walls? That birth itself is breaking through a wall, coming into a new dimension. Why didn't I understand that every time I'm birthed into a new arena, I'm going to have to burst through a wall in order to get there? And I may come in bruised, and I may come through feet first, and I may come through breech birth, but I got to show up in a new place, in a new way, and adapt to my environment. I got to learn how to use my nose. I got to learn how to eat food. I got to learn how to swallow, because every time you go into something new, you are a baby again. You are learning again. You may have to crawl until you walk. You may have to stumble. You may have to develop. And some of you are here right now because this is the only place where leaders can admit, I don't know it all. I don't have it all. I don't see it all. I don't have it all together. Because when you go back to doing whatever it is that you got to do, you got to look like you got it together. You got to look like you have no doubt. You got to look like you have no fear. You got to look like you're confident. But at 12 o'clock at night, when you take your makeup off and you put your eyelashes on and you pull your weave out of your hair and you take that wig off and you take off all that makeup remover off your face and you're left with your naked self, you have to deal with what it's really like to lead. Birth should have taught me about walls. Playpens should have taught me about walls. Safety gates around the pool should have taught me about walls. Maturity sets boundaries, but fear builds walls. In my book, Disruptive Thinking, I talk about my Connie Corso dogs, Bentley and Honey, and we put up invisible walls to stop them from being in a dangerous situation, because I live in Texas where we got coyotes and beavers and rattlesnakes and copperheads and everything. So we had a safe spot for them to be in, and so we put in invisible walls. You put in invisible walls by putting electrical currents in the walls underground, covering it with grass, and then you put a collar on the dog's neck so that when they're getting close to a boundary, they feel a buzz that lets them know to stay within those boundaries. If they ignore the buzz and go further, the buzz becomes more shocking and more intense. Bentley would feel the buzz and stay in the backyard. But Honey, I'm not saying this because she was a girl or nothing. I don't know what that has to do with it. But Honey would resist the shock, take the pain, because she valued the freedom more than she cared about the pain. To get to the next dimension, she would endure the sufferings, the light afflictions of this present moment, because she knew that this light affliction is but for a moment. But eventually, when I get across this next barrier, I'm going to normalize, and I'm going to finally be where I'm free, where I can move, where I can go. Is there anybody in here that knows what it's like to leap over a wall, and the initial shock and the initial pain, and then the pain subsides and you normalize and you begin to recognize, I'm okay with this. It was worth it to get to the next dimension. Now, some people, you need to stay in the yard, but God promised me a few thousand people in here who are willing to take the shock to get to the next dimension that they've got to get to, because you're tired of marching around something that won't move, and it's time to bring that thing down. I don't know who you are, I don't know where you came from, but if you're ready to break through some barriers, even if you got to endure some suffering, holla at your boy. Let me hear from you. Let me understand you. Yeah. Touch your neighbor, tell them something's about to happen in this place. Something's about to happen in this place. It might be shocking, it might be revelatory, it might be uncomfortable, it may be discomforting, it may be something you didn't expect to happen, but something's about to happen in my life. Something's about to happen in my career. Something's about to happen in my ministry, and I'm getting ready to step into new territory, even if I'm uncomfortable, even if you don't like me, even if you don't invite me out, even if you don't accept me. I am willing to emerge on a new playing field and do this thing all over again. If I'm talking to the right people in the right place at the right time, let me know that I haven't lost my mind. Give me some kind of signal, some kind of indication that I'm talking to the right people. This thing is new. This thing hurts. This thing is scary. This thing's got me nervous. But I promised God I would make it to the city if it cost my life, and come hell. Whew, let me get myself together. Sit down, because y'all about to make me lose my mind up in here. I'm about to lose my mind up in here. The year was 1987. I was 4 years old. From the time I was 4 to the time I was 30, there was a wall that had become a foregone conclusion. It had been there that long. A restriction meant to encircle and isolate East Berlin from Western Berlin and the rest of the Western world. The official purpose of this Berlin Wall was to keep so-called Western fascists from entering East Germany and undermining the socialist state. But it primarily served the objective of stemming mass defections from East to West. When President Reagan came over there, he made a speech, and only one line in that speech continues to live today. And it was in the middle passage of his speech when he said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Reagan called for the General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, to open the Berlin Wall, which was encircling West Berlin since 1961. Often walls are built to protect a way of life or to avoid tragedy or the possibility of intermingling with other societies, ideas, or danger. But he said this wall has got to come down. After multiple trips from various leaders, there is nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come. President Reagan makes a statement, delivers a speech, which resulted in the impervious, impenetrable wall of separation to collapse, to come down into a heap of concrete and wire, to end up in a massive rubble, a heap torn down. And every November 9th since then, there's been a worldwide celebration of the tearing down of the Berlin Wall. East Germans began, watch this is very important. They began picking at the wall with hammers, with picks, and with their bare hands until the mammoth structure gave way to the relentless people who wanted to see what was on the other side. Imagine people clawing down a wall with their bare hands and hammers and picks. Can you imagine what that did to your nails, to your hands, to your fingertips? Can you imagine how much blood, sweat, and tears was on the wall? Big walls don't come down easy. Y'all don't hear me. Stay with me. Big walls don't come down easy. You're not going to spin around 3 times and your walls come tumbling down. There are some walls in this room right now that have persisted so long that they have become concretized in your mind, in your emotions, in your life, and in your will. And whether it is a physical wall or an invisible wall, that wall, God brought you here to this meeting to bring that wall absolutely, completely, and totally down. Yeah. Stay right where you are. I'm coming. See, some of you look like you don't have a wall, but you got invisible walls of fear, of anger, of insecurity, of crowds, of being up front, or connectivity, or intimacy. And every now and then that wall stands up in your life and you act in extreme ways because you can't stand for anybody to get behind your wall. You want me to know your image, but not who you really are. You wanted me to know your persona, but not your personhood. And so you project your representative for a few minutes, but then when it comes to somebody really touching you and knowing you, you can't stand it because you live behind the wall. And now the wall that you built to protect yourself has become a problem because you built the wall to keep hate out, but now you can't let love in. You can't let intimacy in. You can't let peace in. You can't feel pain, but you can't feel nurtured. You don't feel supported. You don't feel connected because you built it for protection, but now you becoming imprisoned by your need to be protected, and you're scared of your friends and your enemies, and you don't talk to anybody, and you cry yourself to sleep feeling lonely because you have isolated everybody, because we were not made to live behind walls. We were not made to be locked up in barriers. We were not made to live beneath our problem, our promise, our privilege, our opportunity. We were not made to be restricted. We were not made to be in isolation. We were not made to be incarcerated. That's why they penalize inmates by putting them in isolation, because big men who kill massive amounts of people people turn into babies if they're left in isolation long enough. And anytime the enemy wants to destroy you and the possibility of your future, he will convince you that you need this wall up. And after the wall gets up, you know how to build it, but you don't know how to bring it down. You know how to protect yourself, but you don't know how to present yourself. And now you need to present yourself, but you're so protected that you're isolated, and all your relationships are coming down, your opportunities are coming down, your engagements are coming down, because you really can't connect with people because you're living so long behind the wall that you got to decide, like Bentley and Honey, either I'm going to stay within the parameters of what feels good, or I'm going to break through to the next dimension. Well, everybody who wants to stay where they are, this is not your message. You stay right where you are. Maybe they're going to talk to you this week. This is for the radical people who are willing to take hammers and picks and even their fingernails to claw their way over into the next realm of where they're trying to go. Hallelujah. Let me tell you something. When them people hit that wall, it was not Reagan's speech that brought the wall down. It was the relentlessness of their activity, brick by brick, block by block, piece by piece, stone by stone. I'm going to tear this thing down. And I need about 10,000 people in this room who are ready to get a hammer and a pick and a shovel and a nail and even scratch your way out of this situation, because you refuse to spend the second half of your life locked up behind some wall that somebody built around you that said you can't be this and you can't do that and you can't do that. Who said that? Look at somebody and tell them, I'm getting ready to tear this thing down. I'm getting ready to tear this thing down. On the first day of the Leadership Summit, in order for me to absorb everything that I need to absorb, I got some walls to tear down. You might not be able to see them. My wall might be invisible, but I'm going to bring it down. It may be an invisible wall of low self-esteem. It may be an invisible wall of imposter syndrome, but I refuse to spend the rest of my life incarcerated by my own emotions, locked up by my own fears. I don't care what it is, I'm going to tear it down and let all my enemies know assuredly, you can't build a wall that will keep me from getting over it. If I can't get over it, I'll go under it. If I can't go under it, I will shout till it comes down. But I'm not going back to a dry place to make you feel comfortable. I'm going to break loose, and I'm going to break loose over the next 3 days in a crazy way. I'm going to break through over the next 3 days into a brand new dimension. I'm going to break through in the next 3 days with everything I got. And if I'm talking to you, holla at your boy. It's got to come down. It's got to come down. It's got to come down. Touch everybody. You could reach and say, it's got to come down. It's got to come down. In my marriage, in my finances, in my business, in my company, under my administration, under my leadership, in my church, in my storefront, in my city, up under my auspices, it's got to come down. I can't just keep prancing around and pacing the floor and seeing the same ground year after year, day after day, feeling the same feelings. Day after day, the devil is a lie. I came to make a pronouncement. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Everything that's standing in my way has... Oh, I got to quit. I'm about to feel like preaching. Woo. Woo. I forgot where I am. I'm supposed to be a little dignified at a leadership conference, but this is spiritual warfare. I declare, I decree and declare, I decree and declare, I decree and declare, I declare and decree that everything that's standing in your way, you will see that thing come down. down. If you can't clap it down, scratch it down. But whatever was holding you up when you got here, you came all the way to Orlando to bring that thing. Down. I'm going to tear this wall down. I'm going to bring it to its knees. I'm going to see it collapse into a pile of rubble. And then I'm going to climb over top of it and get back what the enemy stole from me. I want to talk to some people that... I want to talk to some people that aren't scared to get dirty. I want to talk to some people that are radical. I want to talk to some people that'll throw their hair back in a bun and go to scratching at something until it breaks open for you. I refuse to be a statistic. I refuse to give up and quit. I refuse to lay down and die. I refuse to give up the good fight of faith. I refuse to give up on my dream. I refuse to walk away from my promise. I refuse to let you have the last word. I refuse. Somebody give him 30 seconds of crazy, ridiculous. The oldest walls, oh, I feel something. Y'all give me 5 minutes, I'm gonna wrap this up. The oldest walls found in existence are about 12,000 years old in Turkey. 12,000 years ago. Göbekli Tepe was an area that we found the first remains of prehistoric walls that pre-existed the times that we're living in now. So this notion of walls has been done not only in Berlin, but it's been done all over the world to incarcerate us. There are 5 major cities I talk about in my book that built exalted highways that were airborne, that encircled repressed neighborhoods. And it looks like a simple thing, and it looks like traffic management, but it was designed to keep those neighborhoods impoverished so that all the commerce in the city drives by those areas without exit ramps to access those areas. The businesses asphyxiated and began to die. This was not a mistake, it was a setup. It was a strategy, and I'll prove it to you, because in every city where the walls came down and the highways were leveled, the economy splurged into the dry areas and began to do with it what happened in Katrina. What happened in Katrina wasn't the intensity of the storm, it was the shattering of the levee. Anytime a dam breaks, everything that's held back begins to flood through. I don't know who I'm talking to, but the walls that have been built around you and your church and your business and your economics are strategically in place to keep you in a place of repression. That's the bad news. But the good news is you are a chosen generation, and up under your leadership, every high place God is about to bring down. Your diligence is about to bring down. Your education is about to bring down. Your strategy is about to bring down. You think God put you in that position to make money? You could make money anywhere. You're planted in that position so that you can have influence to bring about radical change, to change your generation. You are the Joshua generation. You have been selected to break down the walls that your parents live with. The devil is a lie. Who am I talking to today? Every wall that stood up that we've been getting along with, that we've been shutting down to, is about to come down. You got to get rid of your old weapon. You can't fight a new war with old weapons. Your sword will not work in this environment. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringeth every thought into captivity unto the obedience of Christ. I need some radical people. I need some revolutionary people. I need some people that are willing to get their hands dirty. I need some people that are sick and tired of being sick and tired and made up your mind. I'm not going to stop until it comes down. Are you in the house? Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down. I don't want to scare nobody. Sit down, sit down, sit down. But I feel something creeping up my spine, going all the way up my back, going all the way up through my vertebrae, going up through my cells, getting into my tissues and my joints. I'm about to tear something down, and it's going to crumble this morning so that you have freedom the rest of the week. Shout yes! So there are three things that this story comes to teach us. Whether allegory or reality, there are three things that we can extract from the story that causes us to have sustenance and substance that is relevant for the fight we fight today. Number one is parameters. We got to understand how to deal with the parameters. The parameters, the exalted highways, the fences, the barriers, the restrictions that restrict you because of what you look like, or because of your gender, or because of your age, or because of your stage. You got to understand the parameter before you can correct it. Number two, it teaches us that Joshua leads during a paradigm shift. And you are called to lead in the biggest shift that we have seen in the last 200-300 years. The shift that's about to happen in your life is going to be such a paradigm shift that all the rules of your yesterday have not prepared you for your. So I got to disrupt your thinking lest you fight today's battle with yesterday's weapon, or yes, you try to feed off of yesterday's bread, which is too wormy for the paradigm shift you're in right now. So it comes to teach us about parameters. It comes to teach us about paradigms. And finally, it comes to teach us about paralysis. Anytime you are left with parameters, walls of restriction, there will eventually come paralysis. Whether it's economic paralysis, emotional paralysis, paralysis will inevitably be wherever things stop to flow. All I have to do to kill my finger is wrap a string around it, and it will turn brown. Well, it's already brown. It'll turn black. I forgot. It will turn black and fall off. You don't have to cut it off. Just block it off. I was thinking about boundaries. We have boundaries in every relationship, friendships, connections, business relationships. Stop treating your business relationships like they're personal friends. They couldn't tell your business if you didn't tell it to them in the first place. They're not your friends, they're your coworkers. Put some boundaries in place. The one place where you don't need boundaries is where we are most apt to put them up, in our own house. And there we are in a situation with somebody that we live with but don't talk to. And what the text teaches us about personal relationships is marriage is the one place where you're supposed to be able to let your guard down and become one. And that is also the one place that we most often have the highest walls. Oh, y'all got quiet. Y'all was shouting. What happened to the shout? Y'all was doing good. That means you can be sitting with, sleeping with, and even having intimate relationships with somebody that you have a wall up that they cannot even see. And there you are. You got a promise and a problem in the same situation. So the promise is on the other side of the wall, and the wall is the problem. And the wall can be a silent wall. You can't see it. You can't hear it. I was sitting up in a restaurant watching two old people having dinner, old couple been married a long time. They wasn't saying nothing except pass me the sugar and the butter, and they was just going through the motion. They looked so miserable. These are the people who talked on the phone till they ran out of words. These are the people who ran home from work to tell her all kinds of stuff, and they've lost speech. And the silence was like a barricade between them. And I didn't know them, but I saw them, and I knew immediately there is a wall between you. Have you ever had a wall between you and your child? And a misunderstanding that separated you, and you had to learn how to live on your side of the wall, and your heart ached for connection, and you didn't know how to fix it because the love doesn't stop because the wall went up. Come on, real people. I'm gonna have to go to the young people because the old folks know how to be phony. Where are my young folks? Make some noise in this place. Just because you're sleeping with somebody doesn't make you connected to the person you're sleeping with. If I don't give you my secrets, I have not given you me. If I can't talk to you like I'm talking to myself, then there's a wall between us. If we can't open up and have connectivity, we can have sex, but we can't have intimacy. There are all kinds of walls that need to come down in this place. There are walls in your church. There are walls in your ministry. Everybody shouting at you is not with you. Everybody that's clapping for you is not behind you. Everybody that smiles in your face is not with you. Check them envelopes. Sometimes the people who make the most noise give you the least support. Everybody who clicks on your link is not behind you. Everybody who puts a heart on your Instagram is not for you. Everybody who goes past your page is not with you. You can have more engagements than you have income. Everybody who follows you is not your friend. Everybody who gives you a heart doesn't love you. Everybody who clicks on when you're doing an Instagram live is not with you. Stop buying into this baloney that these people are engaged with you. In reality, there is a wall that has to come down. But I'm coming to tell you right now that every wall that has risen up against you is about to come down in a supernatural way, and we're about to see a breakthrough like we've never seen before. And the enemies that you see today, you shall see them no more. I come to tell you that you're about to step into a place where you don't need manna anymore. I come to tell you that you're about to step into a place where you don't have to make do anymore. I come to tell you that you have come out of your desert and you have survived, and you have arrived at the portal of your success. I came to tell you that when you make this next step, it's not just a physical step, it's a mental step, it's an emotional step. When you step into this next dimension, the doors are going to fly open for you. Have you ever been at the grocery store and you had your cart in your hand and you couldn't open up the door, but when the mat felt the weight of your step, the door opened? And I want to tell you something right now, that God has set before you an open door, and it's foot activated. When you step on it, it's going to open up for you. When you step on it, it's going to move. When you step on it, you're going to get a breakthrough. Who am I talking to in this place? Stand up on your feet. We're about to tear down some walls. We're about to tear down some barriers. We're about to tear down some territories. We're about to open up relationships. We're about to irrigate our businesses. We're about to irrigate our communities. We're about to step into a new dimension. We're getting ready to tear down some sociological walls, some economic walls, some self-sabotaging walls. We're even going to tear down some walls we built ourselves. But every wall in your life is about to come down. In a minute, I'm going to ask you to take a step, but it's more than the step you take. The step means I'm moving my mind, I'm moving my energy, I'm moving my efforts, I'm moving my focus. And when you step, the door is going to open in your life. When you step, the mountain is going to move out of your way. When you step off the boat, you're not even going to understand how you're standing, but you're standing on the promises of Christ our Savior. I want every believer in this room to just take some steps into what your next is, into your future, into your destiny, and then praise Him for what is about to break loose. Tear down this wall. Tear down this obstacle. Tear down this silence. Break it with a shout. Break it with a shout. Break it with a shout. Break it with I dare you. Nothing is going to happen till you open your mouth. When you open your mouth, they walked and they walked. But when they opened their mouth, everything that was in their way began to move. The power is in your mouth. Open your mouth. I'm tearing down something. I'm tearing down something. You might see some dust. see some rocks, but I'm tearing down something. Every time I holler, I'm tearing down something. Every time I take a step, I'm tearing down something. I refuse to be who I used to be. I'm ready to be who I'm gonna be. I don't care who built it. You got to tear down this wall for the next 60 seconds. We're gonna wreck this place. We're gonna pulverize every wall. You don't realize what I'm saying. You're coming against systems. You're coming against belief systems. You're coming against systems of fear. You're coming against systems of hypocrisy that have been built to asphyxiate you spiritually, academically, economically, and socially. That's why we must have a multi-pronged approach to development. We have to pray in the Spirit, but we also have to inform ourselves with intelligence so that we can know the times in which we live, so that we can be effective and prepared intellectually and spiritually. If you are all spiritual and not intellectual, you will mystify the next move and reduce it down to church antics. And you will become intoxicated by what was meant to build you up. Faith was never meant to get you drunk. Watch out for people who just want you drunk, because you must be sober. Be vigilant. For this next shift, we got to do more than dance. We got to dream. We got to build, and we got to make unlikely strategic alliances. Joshua made an alliance with the Gibeonites that was necessary to infiltrate the Jebusites, the Hittites, and the Canaanites. God is going to make connections in your life that don't make sense, that are foreign, that seem weird. He's going to set you in strategic places to have innovative opportunities so that you can have disruptive thinking, not disruptive dancing. Disruptive thinking. Disruptive thinking means I'm willing to tear up the story I told myself and transitioned from my truth to the truth. That's just my truth, child. I'm walking in my truth. That's what's wrong with you. You're walking in your truth and not the truth. My perspective, God's perspective, helps you to have the truth and not a truth that you have used to justify your intoxication. You're on the precipice of change. If this wall comes down, you are going to possess territories, properties, real estate, businesses, commerce, stocks and bonds, strategic alliances, corporate leadership. You're on the precipice of massive change. God's going to put you in the positions of influence as a leader, as an elected official. God's going to raise you up to a place and put you on boards and committees because of where you came from. And the only reason the wall is there is because they are afraid that if the wall drops, the immigrants will cross the border. Now, I'm not speaking this politically. I don't care about that. Let somebody else worry about that. I'm speaking this spiritually. Anytime you come into a new place, new job, new corporation, new business, you're an immigrant in that element. And you are getting ready to cross through the wall, climb over the rubble, and come into a new place. Now, this is all I want, and I'm done. I only want the people who heard what I said and it bears witness in your spirit to something that you have been feeling, may have been uncomfortable, may have caused some fluctuation in your digestion, your sleep, may have manifested as anxiety because you are on the precipice of change and your old habits, restrictions, change have got to come down in order for you to go. You cannot take this on with your sword, your mouth, your temper, your rage. But this wall must come down. I don't care whether you're part of a corporation or a church or a business or you're an entrepreneur. If you have seen yourself self-sabotage things and then cry because they were gone, if you have lived behind invisible walls and kept your lips closed, if you have had unforgiveness and could not find the place to forgive, if you have lost the trust of someone and you don't know how to fix it, if you are serious about taking territories and you need God's help, just for 5 minutes, I want you to rush this altar. I'm going to pray a quick prayer, but it's going to have lasting impact on what's been holding you back. You don't know how to fix it. You don't know how to straighten it up. You've had moments, glimpses, laughter for a second. You've had moments of normalcy. You have been a spy on the promised land, but now God is calling you to possess the promised land, and you don't know how to get it. And you're in a position, but you don't know how to use that position to its fullest capacity. And you come to this conference not because you felt like a valiant leader, but because you felt like a vulnerable leader. And you can't tell the people you're leading that sometimes you don't know where to go. You can't tell your husband, your wife, I don't know how to fix this, but I'm willing to learn. You don't know how to talk to your daughter and say, I didn't know how to do anymore, but I'm willing to learn. You don't know how to go to your father and say, I know I disappointed you, but I love you. I know you let me down, but I accept your flaws and weaknesses so I can accept my own. What you do know is that I'm tired of living behind these walls. I'm tired of living with these walls, acting like I don't see them, hiding the fact that inside I'm miserable, preaching life and wanting to die. And I came to this conference because I need the touch of God to tear down this wall. I'm going to need more than information. I'm going to need the stimulation that comes from the spirit world that gives me the grace to step into new territory. And some of the things I'm getting ready to do, I'm scared of, and I don't have no experience in it, and I don't have any background in it, but God sent me here because this is going to be the place in Orlando where my wall comes tumbling down. And I step into a new place at last, and I get my voice back, and I get my love back, and I get my feelings back, and I get my restoration back. This is going to be the place that I'm going to be celebrating about for the next 30 years. It's going to be today that goes down as my personal spiritual holiday. Every year on this day, I'm going to eat something special or do something special to commemorate. This was the day that my wall came down. This was the day that I stepped into my destiny. This was the day that I moved into more abundance. This was the day that I got my focus together. This was the day I believed in myself. This was the day that I got my language back. I got my voice back. I got my fight back. I got my courage back. Mark this day off on your calendar. We're going to celebrate this day for years. This is the day that the Lord hath made. I will rejoice. I had gone through so much trouble one time in my life, and I never expected to be famous. I really don't like it. I really don't like it. It's not what it's cracked up to be. And so I started retreating into my house and my property. And I closed the walls in around my house. And it's a beautiful home. I didn't want anybody to see it. I just wanted it to be left alone. And after a while, I moved from the yard to staying in the house. And then after that, I moved from staying in the house to just staying in my gentleman's quarters. And then after a while, I started staying in the closet of my gentleman's quarters. And one day I was sitting in the closet, and I said, isn't this stupid? You got this whole house. You got all of this yard. You got all of this life. And you're sitting up in this closet. What is it about your external actions that's showing you something about your insides? I had let the voices of them and they drive me off of my own property. You don't understand, this is my property. I'm paying the mortgage on a house, and I'm all the way back, and I decided right there, I'm coming out. I'm coming out. I'm going to possess what's already mine, and I'm going to possess stuff that don't know it's mine. Not only did I possess all of my property, I bought 10 acres across the street and built 40 houses on it to let the devil know I will not be incarcerated. I triple X my investment on my real estate because I wanted to let him know I'm going to possess the land and the territory, and I don't care what anybody says, and I don't care what anybody does, and I'm tired of living behind the walls of other people's opinions. I'm tired of being locked down trying to please you at the expense of me. I am ready to be free indeed. Free indeed. Not just free, but free indeed.